Indiana Fever lose to a young Washington Mystics team, 83-77. Look lost without Caitlin Clark.
I'll say it. Fire Stephanie White. Oh boy. Oh boy.
The Indiana Fever just got exposed in the most brutal way possible. Without Caitlin Clark on the court, this team looked completely lost against Washington. We're talking about an 83-77 disaster that showed exactly how much this franchise depends on one player. Sydney Colson couldn't handle the pressure, scoring just 4 points while turning the ball over 3 times. The offense scored 0 fast break points, 0. This wasn't just a loss. It was a complete system failure that has Fever fans questioning everything about this team's future, including some calling for Coach Stephanie White to get fired. If you can't wait for Caitlin to get back, comment "get well soon" CC down below. Let's go.
This was a absolute embarrassment. An embarrassing performance from the Indiana Fever.
Picture this. You're watching the Fever's first possession without Clark, and Sydney Colson immediately turns the ball over. That's exactly how this nightmare started. Colson was supposed to be the answer at point guard, stepping into Clark's massive shoes for at least 2 weeks while the superstar recovers from her injury. Everyone expected her to at least keep the ship floating.
Sydney Colson started at point guard, stabbed me in the eye with a dull spoon. Literally scoop out my eyeball and just throw it. I mean, it'd be less painful than having to watch this.
Instead of rising to the occasion, Colson delivered one of the most painful performances you'll see from a starting point guard. We're talking about a complete meltdown on the biggest stage. 4 points on 2, 4, 7 shooting tells only part of the story. The real damage came from her 3 turnovers and 5 fouls in 31 minutes of playing time. This wasn't just struggling, this was falling apart when the team needed leadership most.
Aaliyah Boston played less minutes than Sydney Colson. Aaliyah Boston played less minutes than Sid Colson. Aaliyah Boston, MVP candidate up to this point, OW candidate Aaliyah Boston, played less minutes than full-time comedian, part-time basketball player Sydney Colson.
Fans were literally calling for her to be pulled from the game as early as the second quarter. Social media exploded with brutal criticism. One fan perfectly captured the mood when they said, "I wanted to tell Sydney Colson to leave the basketball before the basketball leaves her, but it's too late. The basketball has already left her." That's how bad things got out there.
Sid Colson is the worst point guard I have ever seen in the WNBA. And I've watched Julie Van Loo play bad games. And if you guys have ever seen Julie Van, heard about or watched Julie Van Loo in a bad game, it can get like painful to watch.
The offense looked completely lost every time Colson tried to run a play. Teammates were standing around waiting for anything to happen. The ball movement that usually flows through the Fever offense just disappeared. Players couldn't get into their spots because the point guard couldn't get them the ball where they needed it.
I mean, this offense looked awful, and Sydney Colson, my God, is terrible running point guard on this team. Terrible.
Compare this to Clark's usual 19 points and almost 10 assists per game, and you start to understand the massive gap the Fever are dealing with. Clark doesn't just score. She makes everyone around her better. She creates easy shots for her teammates. Colson couldn't do any of that against Washington.
Sydney Colson, definitely not a backup point guard for this team. Now, the Indiana Fever with Caitlin Clark against the Atlanta Dream scored 12 points in a quarter. The Indiana Fever with Caitlin Clark scored 13 points in a quarter. The Indiana Fever without Caitlin Clark have back-to-back quarters scoring 17 points in one and 13 points in another.
Social media exploded with Fever fans questioning why Stephanie White didn't have a better backup plan ready. They knew Clark's injury was coming. They had time to prepare. Yet this was the best option they could come up with? Fans were absolutely furious about the lack of preparation. Coulson's struggles exposed the harsh reality that the Fever have zero depth at the most important position on the court. When your starting point guard goes down, you need someone who can at least run basic plays, someone who won't turn the ball over 3 times in crucial moments. The Fever clearly don't have that person.
What about Sydney Coulson's game today made you feel like, oh, okay, Sydney Coulson can ball up? That was a good signing. Did she give energy that you guys looked at and said, oh, this is reassuring? No. Did she make plays that you guys saw and said, oh, this is reassuring? No. What about the game plan today made you feel like this team was ready at all? If there was a game plan at all, what about it made you feel like this team was ready at all?
This performance raised serious questions about whether the team can survive even one game without their superstar, let alone 2 weeks. If this is what the Fever looked like without Clark, the next couple of weeks are going to be absolutely brutal for this franchise. Here's a number that will make your stomach drop. 0 fast break points for the entire game. That's right, 0. The Fever's offense usually runs through Clark's incredible court vision and pace-pushing abilities. She creates those easy transition buckets that keep teams competitive. Without her, the team managed just 77 points while shooting a season-low 23.8% from 3-point.
They had 0 fast break points. 0 fast break points on the game. 0. 0 fast break points. I don't care what the score ends up.
The ball movement completely disappeared. The Fever only managed 15 assists, compared to their usual 22 per game average. That's a massive drop-off that shows just how much this offense relies on Clark to make things happen. When your primary playmaker goes down, everything else falls apart. Players couldn't find each other. Open shots became contested ones. Easy baskets turned into forced attempts.
Kelsey Mitchell, when she just goes, meep, dribble, do something dumb, she goes 4 for 16 from the field. 4 for 16. 4 assists. The team had 21 turnovers. Or is it 21 turnovers? Or is it 9? It was in 19. I can't remember if it was 1 over 20 or 1 under 20. So there's more than 17 turnovers. They had 17, then they turned the ball over twice. Either way, they have set the record for most turnovers in a game this season for them. They had more turnovers than when Caitlin Clark had 10 herself.
Kelsey Mitchell should have stepped up as the primary scorer. Instead, she went 4 for 16 from the field for just 14 points.
Mitchell is supposed to be the second option on this team.
She's supposed to take over when Clark is out. But she couldn't get good looks. She couldn't create her own shot consistently. The offense just wasn't designed to run through her the way it runs through Clark.
Aaliyah Boston shot the ball 5 times. Aaliyah shot it 5 times. Sid Coulson shot the ball 7 times. She shot it 7 times.
Interview. Even Aaliyah Boston, usually reliable in the paint, managed only 10 points despite shooting efficiently. She barely got any touches because no one passed to her the entire game. Boston shot 4 for 5 from the field, but only took 5 shots total. Think about that. Your most efficient player gets the fewest opportunities because nobody can get her the ball where she needs it. The offense became a series of isolation plays and forced shots. That's exactly what happens when you lose your primary playmaker. Players start trying to do too much on their own. They hold the ball too long. They take difficult shots instead of moving the ball around. The entire system breaks down.
If I told you that we had a team with 2 clear future Hall of Famers on it, along with 2 All-Stars, Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston, would you think that we would be able to at least beat the Washington Mystics? No. Would you think that we would be able to at least look like a team against the Washington Mystics? The amount of hero ball, the amount of isolation ball was absurd tonight. This looked like a pickup team tonight. And it begs the question, what do we do in practice? Seriously.
Washington's defense didn't even have to work that hard. They just sat back and watched the Fever beat themselves. The Mystics could play straightforward defense because they knew the Fever couldn't run their usual sets. No fast breaks to worry about. No crisp ball movement to defend. Just isolation basketball. That's easy to stop. This wasn't just missing Clark scoring. This was losing the entire offensive system that made the Fever competitive. The Fever dropped from 107.5 points per 100 possessions with Clark on the floor to just 87.7 without her. That's a massive difference that shows how much one player can impact an entire team's offensive identity.
They looked like they picked teams before coming to the game and they just went out there and tried to play the best they can. If I can even say the best they can. I didn't really see any fire from anybody. I didn't really see any energy from anybody. Yeah, Lexi Hull had a couple plays where she does the Lexi Hull thing. But I'm tired of seeing the supposed leader of this team, the head coach, on the sidelines like this with her arms crossed the whole entire time, not looking like she gives a damn. I'm not cool with that, folks.
The 77 points scored represented everything wrong with this team's construction and their complete dependence on one player. When your offense can't function without one person, you don't have a team. You have a one-woman show with supporting actors who can't perform when the star isn't there. Fever fans are absolutely furious with Stephanie White. And honestly, can you blame them after watching this disaster unfold? White had time to prepare for life without Clark. Everyone knew this injury was coming. The team had practice time. They had meetings. They could have worked on new offensive sets. They could have prepared backup plans.
Stephanie White is getting destroyed today. Ken Swift posted this, a picture of what's supposed to be Christie's side.
Instead of adjusting the offensive system or finding creative solutions, she just plugged Carlson in and hoped for the best. That's not coaching. That's just throwing bodies on the court and praying something works. Good coaches create systems that can function when key players go down. White clearly didn't do that preparation work. The rotations made no sense during this game. Key players sat during crucial stretches, while struggling players stayed on the court way too long. Sophie Cunningham played 20 minutes and scored just 2 points, 2 points in 20 minutes of game time. Yet White kept running the same ineffective lineups over and over again. She watched Cunningham struggle and did nothing to change it.
Like, they were embarrassingly bad without Caitlin Clark. They were just embarrassingly bad. And I mean this, a good coach will figure something out. A good coach will figure something out. Does this team play defense? No. No. I mean this team doesn't play defense. They've just gotten lucky. Teams miss shots. They've gotten lucky, teams miss shots. They don't play defense. They still don't play defense. I know they held the Mystics to 83 points. This was a Mystics team who were not shooting well. They don't play defense. They don't defensive rebound. They don't put in any effort. And that's on coach. That is on the coach.
Fans were screaming for adjustments that never came. One fan perfectly captured the frustration, saying, "I feel bad, but please get Sydney Carlson out the game." Everyone could see the problems happening in real time, everyone except the coaching staff. Apparently, White kept trotting out lineups that clearly weren't working against Washington's defense. Post-game, White's comments about the offense looking different felt like excuses rather than taking responsibility for the preparation. She talked about missing Clark's presence, but didn't explain why the team looked so unprepared. She didn't talk about what adjustments they tried. She didn't take ownership of the poor rotations or timeout usage.
I'm sorry. There is no way you can have 0 fast break points a team unless you are actively trying to not run. Unless you are trying to not run. You cannot have 0 fast break points as a team.